Hi, welcome to a dual Keyforge Age of Ascension deck reveal. This is Andrew, and I'm going to be sharing two decks with you today. The first one is the one I opened up at a sealed event earlier today, where I went fifth out of a field of 17. I had a 3-1 record, but came in last of the 3-1s based on strength of schedule to get fifth place. But because the tournament was set up so that the top half of the field would get a deck as a prize at the end, I got a deck. So I'm going to open that on stream as well. So that'll be fun. This is the non-reclosable packaging, and it will have the red strip. Fun times. But yeah, I'll do that second. So first of all, let's go through this one. So this one is the one that conquers artifacts. That's a fantastic name. It's Logos, Mars, and Untamed, and it has some consistency, some repeat creatures that you'll see. We start with Archimedes, and Archimedes turned out to be really good, better than I realized going in. So that was pretty fun. Archimedes is 2 power. He has elusive, and each of Archimedes' neighbors gains destroyed archive this creature. So you'll see later we have a few, creatures with really nice play effects. Getting to put those next to Archimedes, use them to fight, impale themselves on some enemy creature, and then go back in the archives was pretty great. It takes 3 turns to pull that off, but yeah, it worked out really nicely. And we have 2 copies of Archimedes, so that worked out well. If you have Archimedes next to Archimedes, then whichever of them dies first is going to get archived, so that's a pretty good deal too. Next, we have Binate Rupture. And this one is an interesting card. It has alpha, so you have to play it first thing on your turn. And when you play it, both players gain amber equal to the amber in their pool. So your amber gets doubled and your opponent's amber gets doubled. So obviously this is much better when you're ahead, at least on amber. If your opponent just forged and is at 0 but you're at 5, then that's a good time to use it. But it is really dependent on that. So if your opponent has a deck where they're really quickly keeping their amber rolling and they're always on like 3, then this is not great. Unless you have some other way to follow up and do something with that amber that you just gave them. And in this deck, I don't have a way. So there are 3 of these. That was a bummer. I think one of these would have been okay. 3 was just too much. I did have, in my first game, my opponent was just stealing and staying way too far ahead of me. In the second game, I managed to end up in a situation where I had forged 2 keys. My opponent had no keys. They got to 6. I was at 4. I used Binate Rupture just to get over the hump to 8, and it put them on where they would already be on check again after they forged. But because it put me on 8, I was able to come out and win. So that worked out really well for me. There was another game where I was able to use it when I had 5 and my opponent had 2. That was fine, and that game was close, but I did manage to win in the end. So it has a use, but I think 3 is just too much. Okay, next we have Cutthroat Research. It's an action that gains you an amber and steals 2. If you pull this off, it's as good as Lifeweb, right? The problem with this is that on its own, it can't bring your opponent down below 6, right? Because they have to be at 8 for it to trigger. You steal 2 there, they would be at 6. Plus, your opponent doesn't necessarily want to be going to 8 all the time. They can forge it if they can forge at 6. So if you had a way to push amber costs up, I think this could be really good. If you had other ways to steal 1 more, this could be good. But on its own, it's kind of disappointing. I never want to be in a situation where I can use it. So that was not fantastic. By the way, when I first opened this deck and started reading through it, I was like, I don't think this is, I'll be happy if I break even. I was really happy to go 3-1. I think it performed probably above what it should. But I mean, there's still some really cool stuff in here that you'll see. But Those four cards, the Binate Ruptures and the Cutthroat Research, are really disappointing. Okay, next we have Lab Work. Gain an Amber, archive a card. That's returning from Call the Archons. Solid. Poke, that's a new one. It's an action. You gain an Amber, deal 2 damage to an enemy creature, and if this damage destroys that creature, draw a card. That's a pretty cool effect. Unfortunately, there aren't that many Power 1 creatures, and this deck doesn't have any other ways to be kind of spraying 1 damage over the board, so it ended up not firing very much. I did get like 1 or maybe 2 draws over the course of the tournament with 2 of these, but it just wasn't fantastic. If I had both of them in my hand, then I could kill one thing. So it's here's 2 cards, kill 1 power 2 thing, and get 2 amber and a card draw, and that's not terrible. So it's not bad. It's just not Twin Bolt. I would have rather had Twin Bolt Emission. Next we have Titan Mechanic, returning from Call the Archon, 6 power while it's on a flank. Key cost -1. Ended up in a funny situation with this one actually, where my opponent had a War Grumpus out. That's the one. A Grump Buggy. That's what it was. The Grump Buggy. It's an artifact that says that your opponent's keys cost +1 for each power 5 or higher creature you have. Your keys cost +1 for each power 5 or higher creature your opponent has. And so in that situation, this was kind of cool because it dropped my cost by 1, and it also dropped his cost by 1, but it also increased his cost by 1. So for him, it was break even. For me, it was lowering my cost by 1. Of course, he killed it, but that was cool while it lasted. So decent fun possibilities there. Bouncing Death Quark, that was actually really good in this deck. It's really good with the Archimedes if you're willing to set up a situation where you can kill the neighbor of Archimedes, kill the next neighbor of Archimedes. You can archive a bunch of creatures from your board that way, and that's kind of a cool effect that you can do. And that's also returning from Call the Archons. But yeah, you kill your own creature and an opponent creature, and then you can keep doing that as long as you want, as long as you can repeat the entire effect. So as long as you have creatures you're willing to kill in order to kill their creatures. Replicator, also returning from Call of the Archons, 2 power, and when it reaps, you trigger the reap effect of another creature in play as if you controlled that creature. I did not get to use this once. It's so tiny, and actually, the other thing is, there's so many things in Age of Ascension that disincentivize reaping, so I just ended up not ever having it trigger. But it is cool if it can trigger it. It's a cool effect. All right. Here we are in Mars. So I think the Logos in this deck, by the way, is the real weak point. The Mars isn't bad, as you'll see, and the Untamed I thought was pretty good. So anyway, we'll get to it. So in Mars, we have 2 copies, actually, of Agent Human, who is 2 power. He's a Martian agent. He's elusive, and when Agent Human reaps, you choose a friendly non-Mars creature and an enemy non-Mars creature. Stun the chosen creatures. At first, yeah, I think I said this talking through another deck, but at first I thought this wasn't very good. Then I realized you can stun the same of your own creature, or you might not even have a non-Mars creature, but you stun the same one of your creature over and over again, and you can spray, you can stun whichever their creatures you want. So it does end up being pretty good. You just have to be willing to stun one of your creatures. Ixixli Fix Finger, 2 power, elusive, and each other Martian creature gets +1 armor. He has 2 armor also. It's interesting to have a card with elusive and armor. That's not very common. In fact, this might be the only one. I'm not sure. Someone pointed out to me today this actually affects all Martian creatures, not just friendly ones. So that's kind of an interesting situation, and that'd be an easy thing to miss. It didn't matter today, but it would be an easy thing to miss. Mindworm, pretty powerful. 1 power, has elusive, and before the fight, when it's fighting, before the fight, the creature it's fighting deals damage equal to its power to each of its neighbors. So if you have like a Lollop next to a couple of Naughties or something like that, you fight the Lollop with Mindworm, the Lollop is going to deal 11 damage to each of its neighbors. and then the Mindworm's going to deal 1 damage to it. Now, Mindworm probably dies on that attack, but because this effect is before fight and not just fight, which would be after the fight, it'll actually go off. So there's a lot of cool potential there. Vizima Think Drone, 3 power. Reap, you may archive a friendly creature or artifact from play. That's returning from Call of the Archons, of course. Xanthe Axe Harvester. This one's interesting. It's 3 power, and it has Reap gain 1, but it can't be used while as a non-Mars neighbor. So, you know, on that Reap ability, it's as good as a Dew Fairy. You're getting the double amber, but you have to, you know, keep it away from your non-Mars creatures. That's kind of a cool effect, and again, I like how in this set there's just a lot of stuff that cares where things are in the battle line, and even things that can manipulate where things are in the battle line, and that, to me, that's a really fun little mini game almost. We have Combat Pheromones. It's an artifact that has 1 bonus amber, and it has Omni Sacrifice it. You can use up to 2 other Mars cards this turn. So, you know, maybe you get to Reap with the Xanthe Axe Harvester, or you get to fight something with the Mindworm. You know, there's a few good options here. Red Planet Raygun is an upgrade that has a bonus amber, and it gives the creature it attaches to Reap, choose a creature, deal 1 damage to that creature for each Mars creature in play. That can be used to pretty good effect. If you want, you can put it on the Think Drone. Putting it on the Harvester makes sense, although, you know, if it's next to a non-Mars creature, then you wouldn't be able to use it. Fixed Finger is a fine target for it because you don't really want to be using it to fight. Stormcrawler is also a really good target for it. Stormcrawler is 6 power and 1 armor, but it only deals 1 damage when it's fighting. So you really, even though it's kind of big, you don't really want to fight with it. So putting a Red Planet Ray gun on it actually is pretty good. And Stormcrawler says that after an enemy creature reaps, you stun it. So that's pretty cool. We have Custom Virus in here. That's an artifact that gives you a bonus amber, and it can sacrifice itself with Omni to purge a creature from your hand. And if you do that, you destroy each creature that shares a trait with the purged creature. So that means if the creature you purge has 2 traits, you know, let's say it's an elf thief, then you're going to destroy every elf and every thief, for example. I never actually triggered this. No, I did once. I triggered it once on one of my Untamed cards, a beast, to destroy an opponent's beasts, and that, I think, was the right move. It worked out pretty well, but 1 trigger out of the whole tournament. Extinction is a little easier to fire off because you just play it out of your hand and boom, there you go. You choose a creature, you destroy that creature and each creature that shares a trait with it. So again, if you pick an elf thief, you're going to destroy all elves and all thieves, and then you gain a chain. So that's pretty cool. 2 ways to do that: destroy by trait, and you know, there's definitely a tendency in houses to have a lot of creatures with the same trait, so it works really nicely. And then we have Quixlix Plaguemaster, who when it fights or reaps, you deal 3 damage to each human creature, and that bypasses armor. That is pretty cool. It didn't really matter in this today. I just never ended up in a situation where that would hit anybody. So, you know, hit and miss. That's why it's a rare, but it is a pretty cool effect. Yeah, if you're up against somebody with a lot of humans, they're going to be sad. That's also returning to Call of the Archons, by the way, as is Custom Virus. So, kind of interesting. So far in this deck, as you see, like a lot of the rares are Call of the Archons cards. That's just funny how that worked out. All right, on to Untamed, and this is the house where I felt like I was getting the most value. Glimmer is a fantastic card. Glimmer is just a 1 power fairy creature, and it has alpha, so you have to do it first thing. But when you play it, you return a card from your discard pile to your hand. Getting to return any card, that's pretty fantastic. Yeah, so when you play it, you return a card from your discard pile to your hand, and there's, you know, we've already seen some good options, and there's more coming. So, yeah, you'll get to see some nice good options here. We have Marmo Swarm. 2-power beast that gets +1 power for each amber in your pool. I have 2 of those in here. That's the one I purged with custom virus to get some value. It's so funny how this works. Like as your amber grows, you get a really big creature, and if it gets damage on it, you have the potential to have it die after you forge. But typically that probably means you got good value out of it. So it's a pretty good setup. Even at like 3 amber, it's 5, and that's solid. So um, enjoyed the Marmo Swarm. It was fun. We have Regrowth. Gain an amber, return a creature from your discard pile to your hand. That's returning from Call of the Archons. The Marmo Swarms are fine for that. Glimmer is an iffy um, target for Regrowth because it has alpha, so you're not going to be able to play it that turn, but it sometimes might be the right call. My preference is to get Glimmer next to an Archimedes so that I can have it run into something and go into my archives. And then a few times I played Glimmer for Regrowth and then used Regrowth to get something else out, and that worked really nicely. 2 copies of Regrowth. Rusnar is just fantastic. I got rid of a Lash of Broken Dreams this way. I got rid of I don't know, a few other things this way. So it's only 4 power, but it's only 4 power. But when it fights, after the fight, if it survives, you destroy an artifact. That's great. And if that artifact had an amber bonus, you gain that much amber. That's pretty cool too. And in Untamed, there are ways to boost creatures' power too. We'll see at least one in here. So there's potential there. I had this next to an Archimedes at one point. That worked out nicely. It's also a great regrowth target. So, if it does end up killed, it's not the end of the world. 2 copies of Save the Pack in here. This is returning from Call the Archons. I'm still just not a really big fan of Save the Pack. If you have the right support cards, it can be good, but it just I never played it because there was never the right situation today. And this deck tends to have creatures that either want to not fight or they just kill stuff. Not a lot of in between. Flaxia. So Flaxia is another great target. This is a great target for regrowth, and it's also not bad to have next to Archimedes. Flaxia is 4 power, and if you control more creatures than your opponent after playing her, then you get 2 amber, and that's pretty fantastic. So again, really good Archimedes neighbor, really good regrowth target, fine glimmer target. Really, really great card, especially with that spot recursion. Lifeweb can be pretty cool. Lifeweb is returning from Call of the Archons, as is Flaxia. Gain an amber, and if your opponent played 3 or more creatures on their previous turn, you steal 2. That's good. Sometimes you just play it for the amber, and that's fine. In this setup, there was once that I glimmered for it, and that was great. So it has decent at least support in this deck because of the glimmer. So yeah, fun stuff. Then we have Niffle Grounds, which I didn't realize at first was an artifact. So it comes out exhausted, but it's an artifact that gains you 1 bonus amber, and it exhausts to let you choose a creature, and for the remainder of the turn, that creature loses taunt and elusive. And yeah, I did some good work with that. What was the thing I killed? I killed something important with that in one of the games. It was a 1 power. Might have been no, I guess it couldn't have been Mindworm. Yeah, I think it was Mindworm because that's elusive. I think it was a Mindworm. Anyway, good stuff. And then last one, we have Panpaka Anga, which is a 5 power beast that you want on the left side of your battle line because creatures to the right of it get +2 power. So I was able to have this out quite a bit, and I mean it's fantastic. It gives your Marmo Swarms +2, makes your Flaxia and your Rusnar 6. It makes your Glimmer 3. It makes these all these Mars creatures bigger, and it makes your Archimedes 4 power with elusive. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff in there. Makes the Titan mechanic 8. Just crazy. So yeah, really fun. And between the 2 regrowths and the Glimmer, I was able to have this out on the board a lot and get good value out of it. It was really nice. So yeah, that's the deck that I got to play with today. Again, right off the bat, I just felt really bad about it, and then losing in that first game, it was bad. They had a lot of steel, and I don't have Amber control in here, so it just really did not go well. And I thought, oh, this is how the rest are going to go, and uh, yeah, that ended up not being the case. I think the most exciting game was my third one, where my opponent got 2 keys early, and then I caught up um, and got board control, but they got a redacted on the board, and so we're just choosing logos turn after turn. And in my last turn, I had Rustnar in my hand, and they had 2 counters on the redacted, and I thought, I can play. So if you don't know, redacted is an artifact that every time you call logos as your house, you put an amber from the common supply on it, and when it has 4, you sacrifice it and forge a key. So so it's key cheating in logos, and so they were on 2 tokens on there, and I had Rustnar in my hand, but they only had 1 creature on the board, and I thought, if I play Rustnar, they can just run their creature into something else, and it's a logos creature, so they can call logos, get that 3rd token, run their creature into something, and then I won't have anything to fight with Rustnar to get rid of the redacted, and I'll lose. So I went against what I felt like doing, and went Mars and reaped a bunch and got up to 7 amber, and they ended with a I'm trying to remember the name of the card, but it's a new logos artifact that exhausts to discard the top 2 cards of your deck, and for each one of them that is logos, you capture 2. So he called logos, getting a 3rd counter on redacted, put a creature on the board, use that to try to capture some, and didn't see any logos, so I was able to forge and win the game. But man, that was a real nail biter. So anyway, this was it played better than I thought. I think it's still like there's just not enough amber control in here to be really good, and probably not even quite enough board control. There's decent ramp, but it needs something else to be really good, but it's still fun. And yeah, I love those Archimedes with those play effect cards. So yeah, then I'll go ahead and grab the new box here. All right, let's open this thing up and see what we get. So yeah, like I said, this is the kind of old style packaging. I don't know. Well, I guess it matters where it was printed, but I don't know what determines, who gets what distributed to them. So okay, this is cool. Shadows, Mars, I've gotten so much Mars. I think every deck I've opened so far has had Mars. Is that right? Let me check my box here. Mars. Yep. This is my 5th deck I've opened that's had Mars. So that's pretty funny. But that is life. And in Call of the Archons, I couldn't open Mars to save my life for a long time, and then I started getting some. But anyway, I like Mars in this set. It's just wow, I'm getting a lot of it. It's supposed to be easy with the red tab, but sometimes it just doesn't want to go. That, or I grabbed it in the wrong spot. That seems likely. Yeah, of course. All right. So yeah, Shadows, Mars, This is Haokea Honey. I hope I'm saying that right. Haokea Honey Tower Lance Corporal. That's a cool name, and yeah, Nice. Weird, like, torch dude on stilts, I guess. Alright. So, there's the Archon card, and let's see what we got. Start with the Dees. Banish. Action, you gain an amber, you put an enemy creature into your opponent's archives. Great way to just get rid of something, hopefully not with a play effect. Dust Imp, returning from Call of the Archons. 2 power, that when it's destroyed gets you 2 amber, that's cool. Gub is 1 power, and while it's not on a flank, it gets +5 power and taunt. So you want to keep it surrounded by other creatures. When it's in between 2 other creatures, it has taunt and is 6 power, so that's pretty cool. Not finished with you. Gain an amber, shuffle any number of creatures. This is my first time getting this card so far, even though it's common. Shuffle any number of creatures. Well, I think this is my first Dees deck. That's why. Shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. And yeah, they can be from any house you choose. That's pretty cool. Another one of those. That's great. A lot of bonus amber so far too. So happy about that. Unlocked Gateway. So this is the replacement for Gateway to Dees. It destroys each creature, but it's Omega. So you can't play it and then play creatures out. That's it. So now playing Dust Imp right before you play it, fantastic move. But yeah, it ends your step 3, and then there will be no creatures on the board. Bloodshard Imp is a 2 power creature that after a creature reaps, its controller must sacrifice it. That is pretty crazy, and that would apply to yours as well. So sad if we get a lot of reap abilities, but so far we just have the Dust Imp, and I'd be happy to reap with the Dust Imp and then sacrifice it. Tentacus, 5 power, and your opponent must pay you an amber in order to use an artifact. That is strong in the right situation. Hecatomb, cool, more ways to destroy our Dees creatures. Gain an amber, and then you destroy each Dees creature. Each player gains an amber for each creature they controlled that was destroyed this way. I mean, you have a turn that you just drop Dust Imp on the board and play this. You get 4 amber from those 2 cards. That's fantastic. Oh, cool. So okay, this one, I think this is a rare, and I believe it comes with some stuff. And wait, we're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards in. Okay, and I think that this guy gets 2 chains. So Ortanu the Chained, he's 7 power, and when it reaps, you return each copy of Ortanu's Binding from your discard pile to your hand, and for each one returned this way, deal 2 damage to a creature with 2 splash. That is pretty cool, and there we have Ortanu's Binding, bonus amber, deal 2 damage to a friendly creature, and another one. So, if you have a turn where you have him on the board and these 2, you play these, you're hitting him, I guess, and then you reap, and you get to do, you get these back. I mean, yeah, you're going to get to do cool stuff. So that's fun. These are, yeah, special rares that go along with Ortanu. So that's fun. You need to get those in with him, but or at least sometime before him. And these are fine to do to Dust Imp too. So seems cool. I'm excited to see how that plays out. That's a fun new combo. Oh, and what did we? So the Tentacus is returning. Hecatomb is returning from Call of the Archons. So is Dust Imp. That's it. Everything else in this Dees setup is new. In Mars, we start with Agent Human, 2 power, elusive, and when it reaps, you choose a friendly non-Mars creature and an enemy non-Mars creature, and you stun them. Carpet Flotsam. This is like a great follow-up after a turn where you did Unlocked Gateway, because you're going to have nothing on the board. You gain an amber, and then if there are no friendly creatures in play, you deal 4 damage to each creature. So it's a good way to re-wipe their side of the board, for the most part anyway. Collector Worm is 2 power, but 5 armor, and when it fights, you archive the creature it fights. So if it has elusive, you don't do damage, but you archive it. If it's, if it's 4 power, you deal 2 damage, but then you archive it. If you kill it, I'm pretty sure you don't archive it, and if Collector Worm dies, you don't archive anything. Oh, 2 Collector Worms, cool. That's fun. Okay, Sky Booster Squadron, 4 power, and when it reaps, you return it to your hand. People at first were like, "Oh, why would you ever want this?" But there are some cool things that you can enable with this. So we'll just have to see what else we get with it, but it definitely has potential. Tixel Beam Buckler, card that I have learned to appreciate. It's 4 power, has 1 armor, and when you play it, you deal 2 damage to a creature, and you move that creature to either flank of its controller's battle line. So you get to mess with your opponent's battle line potentially, or just kill a small annoying thing. So either way, good stuff that can happen there. Next, we have a Vizima Think Drone. 3 power reap, you can archive a friendly creature or artifact from play. And you know, Tixel Beam Buckler might be an okay target for that. You get that play effect next time you choose Mars. Oh, 2 Think Drones. I feel like so Call of the Archons had Think Drone, so it's returning from that. That's the first Mars cards we've seen in this deck that are coming back from Call of the Archons. But there, I felt like it just didn't do a lot of good. But with some of these play effects, there's potential. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. Ixil's Dominator, that's fun. 9 power, 1 armor, taunt. So huge creature with taunt, but it enters play stunned. So you can't. It takes a little while to get online, but it has taunt the whole time, and that's pretty good. Oh, fun. Key Abduction. Cool. We have enough creatures we might pull it off. Gain the Amber. You return each Mars creature to its owner's hand, yours and theirs. Then you can forge a key at +9 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand. So let's say at the moment we play this, we have, you know, Agent Who-Man, 2 Collector Worms, Sky Booster Squadron, Beam Buckler. You know, we have all these creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 creatures on the board, and we run Key Abduction. Well, that's going to reduce the cost back down by 8, so now it's +1. Plus, if you had other cards in your hand. So yeah, it's a pretty good deal. Potentially forging for under normal cost, depending on what we manage to have on the board. And yeah, seems good. And that's returning from Call of the Archons, as is Dominator. Next up we have another Call of the Archons returning card. Mothership Support. Gain an Amber. For each friendly ready Mars creature, deal 2 damage to a creature. You can choose a different creature each time. So that's strong. Good way to get some stuff off the board if you have some Mars creatures already out. And then this one is new in Age of Ascension. Martian Generosity. When you play it, you lose all your Amber, and then you draw 2 cards for each Amber lost. And that's actually kind of a really cool effect, because let's say you have, it gains you the Amber, right? So let's say you have 3 Amber, and you play this. You have 4 Amber now. You lose all your Amber. You're going to draw 8 cards. Well, if you have Key Abduction now, I mean, you can forge at cost, which you don't have any, but I mean, if you had 5, suddenly maybe you're forging for free. So, wow, that's a great combo. I'm really excited to see those together. That seems really good. That's fun. And yeah, so that's the Mars. I mean, oh man, I can even just imagine a turn where you have some Mars creatures on the board. Reap with them, whatever, use Martian Generosity, draw, most of your deck, and then Key Abduction for free. That is just fantastic. Cool. Okay. I'll stop talking about it and look at shadows. We have Life for Life. Gains you an Amber. You sacrifice one of your creatures to deal 6 damage to a creature. And if you have, cheapo creatures that you don't care about, like, this is just fantastic. So we'll see what we get, but I mean, even like the Think Drones, or imagine sacrificing a Dust Imp to deal 6 damage to a creature. That's fantastic. Nerve Blast, steal 1, And if you do, deal 2 damage to a creature. That's strong. Ronnie wrist clocks, 2 power, and when you play it, you steal 1, but if your opponent had 7 or more, you steal 2 instead. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's really, I think it's a better Urchin. It's not elusive, but I think it's a better Urchin. Sucker Punch is an action that it's alpha, so you can only do it first thing on your turn. Has a bonus amber, and then you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. And if that destroys the creature, you archive Sucker Punch, which is pretty cool. We got 2 copies of that. I think that's fine. I don't want to draw them at the same time, obviously, because I can't play them both in the same turn. Maybe I discard one at that point, but I don't mind seeing it. 3. Yeah, I don't think I like that. We'll see. Maybe it'll play out better than I think, but I'm a little worried about that. And then we have Swindle. So yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a red flag here because we just looked at 4 cards that all say alpha in the same house, and that's probably bad. Although the Swindle, that's all you're going to do on that turn anyway. So if I have this set up, that's not so bad. I can Swindle and not feel bad about leaving the Sucker Punch in my hand, maybe. But a little bit of a red flag there. Umbra, happy about that. This is returning from Call of the Archons, and 2 power skirmish, and when it fights, it steals 1. So that's just nice. Hideaway Hole is, this is a really cool artifact that has a bonus amber, and then has Omni sacrifice it to give all the creatures you control elusive until the start of your next turn. So you have like Umbra on the board. You're worried your opponent's going to kill it. You burn the Hideaway Hole, and it's going to be fine. So far, I think those are our only 2 Shadows creatures. But neither of them have elusive, and maybe you want your Mars creatures to have elusive because you're trying to set up for that key abduction turn. A lot of reasons why this could come in handy. Next, we have Merkins. Merkins is 2 power Elf Thief, and when you play him, you choose a random card in your opponent's archives or the top card of your opponent's deck, and you play that card as if it were yours. So if your opponent has archives, they're probably high-powered cards, and you get to choose one of them randomly, knock it out of their archives, and use it. That's pretty cool. And if they have maybe they have an Archimedes, and they just archived a really cool creature, you play this, and you get to that creature, you get to play it. That's pretty cool, which means it's going to come into play into your control. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff that can happen here. And if they don't have archives, you just play the top card of their deck and roll the dice. So that seems fun to me. Then we have Mack the Knife. This is coming back from the first set. It's 3 power, elusive, and you can use it as if it belonged to the active house. So you can use this every turn that it's out. You can reap, it can fight, but it also can exhaust to deal 1 damage to a creature, and if it destroys the creature, gain an amber. So, and there's combos there, probably with this, you can set up a Sucker Punch, with that, right? If there's a 3 power creature, just ping it for 1 on a turn. Maybe you Nerve Blast a 4 power creature, or a 3 power creature, and Nerve Blast it first, and then hit it with Mack. Maybe you even Sucker Punch it first, and then hit it with Mack, and that's fine. You lose the Sucker Punch, but you got 2 of them, and 3 of them in here, so it's not that bad. Yeah. Oh, wow. That is wow. The Sting. So the Sting is a difficult artifact to play well, but it has a bonus amber, and you don't forge. You skip the forge a key step while you have it. But you get all the amber spent by your opponent when they're forging keys. So, the classic thing is you get this early, you get it on the board, and they forge, you get all their amber, and then you sacrifice it, and you have enough to forge a key. So um, there's a lot of potential there. Um, this could honestly even be okay late game if, like let's say you forge your second key, they haven't got their second one yet. You drop this on the board, and you're getting, and you have key abduction in your hand, right? And so you're like, hey, I'm generating amber a little bit, but they're going to give me a ton, and then I'm going to be able to key abduction for the win. That's definitely a possibility because this skips the forge a key step that happens, before you choose a house, but it doesn't preclude you, it doesn't prevent you from forging a key with a key cheating card like key abduction. So this seems like it has a lot of potential. I'm really interested to see how this plays. Again, not happy about having 4 alpha cards in here, but the rest of the stuff seems pretty good, and I'm happy about it. Um, it seems like there's a lot of ways to steal. Merkins is fun. The Sting is just interesting. Um, Decent board control and a key cheat that is likely to happen. Uh, Come to think of it, probably the one of the things I'm most worried about is Unlocked Gateway is maybe a little bit counter synergistic with the Mars setup, but if that's okay, because you can always just not play it. You can just discard it, and that's not bad if you're ahead on board state, which you might be with this Mars setup. So anyway, yeah, this seems pretty fun. This is Haukea Honey Tower Lance Corporal, and I'm really excited to get in some games with this and see how it goes. Man, I have a hard choice at this point about going to Chainbound this next week and what I'm going to play because I have a few decks that seem like really good options, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it goes. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed both these videos and both these deck openings, and I hope you're enjoying the new set. If you have your hands on it, or if you don't have your hands on it, I hope that you manage to get a deck soon so you can join in the fun. It really is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy. I feel like there's a lot of depth and complexity that's been layered on here in addition to what was in the first set, and I'm just very excited for uh, the innovation in the game and for where it can go from here. So I hope you're with me there. And anyway, until next time, forge some keys.